What's up, Wizards? It's Dev, SVMTG. I'm a Magic man, and today I got a fun one for your face. Here's the top 10 reprints that I want in Kaldheim. Now, these are always fun, and they're some of my favorite kind of videos to make, but I've done like 10 of these at this point, and I end up repeating myself in a lot of them, so in order to avoid that, I've decided this time around I'm going to give myself a little caveat. Now, Kaldheim takes place in a cold setting. It's fairly cold there from what I can gather, and we know we're getting the snow mechanic back too, so I thought it would be pretty fun if I just restricted myself to cards from Ice Age block for this list. That means not only can I choose cards from Ice Age, but I can also use cards from Alliances and from Cold Snap, which came many years later, but is still considered part of Ice Age block. Now, this sounds like a pretty big restriction, but in the end, it was really fun to restrict myself to just these few sets, because there's plenty of awesome cards in here that could really use a reprint. Also, just one quick final note before we get to it here. It's not the like and subscribe, although you should do that. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, bell for notifications. But people are probably going to want me to bring this up because it's a thing I should talk about. Probably, I guess. But some of these cards, again, are from Ice Age and Alliances, which means they have a chance of being on the reserve list. But here's how much I don't care. I didn't even check because most of the cards I'm going to bring up from either of those sets are like 50 cents. So if you reprint them or you functionally reprint them in a slightly different form, it's not going to wreck the reserve list entirely, I promise. I'm not asking you to reprint Black Lotus or Dual Lands or anything like that. If you reprint 50 cents cards from Ice Age that are on the reserve list, I promise you the sky will not fall. We will all live to see the next day. That decision will not affect your life materially. I promise you, I don't care about the reserve list when it comes to Ice Age cards that are like 45 cents. I don't care. I could not care less. Look at me not caring. Let's go ahead and get into it, right? Honorable mention for this list is Lava Burst, mostly to keep a joke alive, because I think for the last, 7 of these or whatever, Fireball has been my honorable mention, or really close to the honorable mention, like number 10 on the list. And that's because I just really respect and love and want back just big, stupid red X spells. I pay this much mana, and I hit you in the face with it. I miss that in Magic so much, and we've had versions of it. Wizards trying to get cute with it for a while. They printed Electro Dominance, which was a trap. I fell for it too. I thought that card was going to be awesome. It was terrible. Mostly, I think I fell for Electro Dominance because I really want a big red X spell that actually works, and Perforos's Intervention just ain't cutting it, boys. We got to do a little bit better than that. You don't have to print a card that's as bad as Electro Dominance, and you don't have to print a card that's as good as Expansion Explosion, right? Just give us a good, simple, this is all. Even if you don't reprint Lava Burst, just replace that last bit of archaic text with damage can't be prevented this turn, and bing bang, you got yourself a perfectly serviceable X spell. And I don't know why Magic seems to be lacking these lately. It used to be a thing that Red always had access to, but nowadays it just seems like they're trying to get really, really cute with it and reinvent the wheel with a Fireball. But just do this. You don't even have to print Fireball because maybe it's too confusing for newer players or something. There's so much text on that card. But this, elegant, simple, clean, beautiful, just do it. I miss giant, stupid X spells in Magic. But let's go ahead and get into the list here. Number 10, another red card. There's actually a fair amount of red cards in this list. Hey, Ziggy, you coming? Let's get over here with your fat butt. I got all the cats. Anyway, number 10 is Burnout. Something that we're all feeling a good bit lately, and one of the better driving games of all time, specifically Paradise. It's just a masterpiece. But anyway, Burnout the card has only really ever been printed the one time, and it's like $1.50 right now, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you can get a lot of cards from Alliances for 25 cents right now. So $1.50 for an uncommon is actually somewhat impressive. As a sideboard option, this would be a sweet color hosing card that would really kind of kneecap a lot of the best decks in the format right now. Not only the best decks, but all the decks people complain about the most. So I'll take that. But while we're trying to take down rogues, you could also reprint Soldevi Digger, although it does have the name of a place in it, so you can't reprint it identically. Just a card like it, during your upkeep, if you're out of cards in your library, you can just put a card right there on top of your library, draw it for the turn, and do that every turn. That could work. You never mill out. That's nice. Or you could just reprint Jotun Grunts from Cold Snap. But similar problem. There's a location in the name, so you have to print a similar version of it. But again, just an aggressively costed big fat creature that allows you to take advantage of the fact that your opponent is Mildew. Would be a nice, callback to Jotun Grunts. But any of these solutions that I've mapped out would be a pretty interesting way of taking out not only rogues, but other decks in the format that are real problems right now. Number 9, is this one on the reserve list? It might be. Altar of Bone is what I want. And yeah, you might just want like Eladamri's Call because it looks like a better card, but hey, right now we got a format where an Abzan deck would really like a card like this. Sacrificing a creature is effectively an upside in your Death's Oasis deck or your Abzan Clerics deck that plays Conclave Mentor. I could see that working out for you. Go get a Tabarax, an Aura, or whatever you're looking for at the time. Go get a Conclave Mentor if you need one. Clerics and Counters are both decks that have a ton of creatures that need to be out at any given time for the decks to function optimally. So I could see a tutor like this working out really well, especially an Abzan deck that has access to like Serrated Scorpion and a bunch of other like reanimation spells, for instance. Maybe sacrifice an Archfiend's Vessel, and then get it back later with a Lurrus or a Call of the Death Dweller or an Agadeem's Awakening. I mean, anything that you sacrifice, you can get back with those reanimation spells. So sacking a creature right now, not really a big deal. And if you got like a Bastion of Remembrance or something in play, you're getting rewarded for it in that way too. So I could really see Altar working in like an Abzan Aristocrats, Clerics or Counters deck. It builds itself. And honestly, all of these decks, whether you want to slap them all together or play them all separately, they can all benefit from a creature-specific tutor that lets them go get whatever missing piece, they don't have at the moment. Now, number 8 is a fun one for me, and a nostalgic one too, but a lot of you are going to be like, no! What are you thinking, Dev? But it's my list, so number 8 is Sunstone. Count your blessings, because it could have been Glacial Crevasse. Now, both of these would be pretty stupid to have in Standard right now, because we also have Ancient Green Warden, which allows us to play lands out of our graveyard. And there's a bunch of other ways to get lands back from the graveyard if that's what you're interested in, especially in Historic. So cards like this would form the basis of a hilarious, Gruul Turbo Fog deck. Whoever thought Gruul Turbo Fog would be a thing, but with Glacial Crevasse and Ancient Green Warden, it absolutely could. But Sunstone can be played in any deck, making it slightly, I think, more dangerous, despite the fact that its activation cost is higher. So either one of these would probably be a massive pain in the neck to actually reprint into Standard, but hey, not every deck in Standard relies on dealing combat damage to win the game. Number 7, this is probably the weirdest, dumbest card on the list. I'll let you know right now. But number 7 is Gangrenous Zombies. I had a lot of fun with this card back in the day. Various reanimation spells mean that you can tap it and deal 2 damage to everything over and over and over, and just keep bringing it back one way or the other. There's various ways to reanimate specifically zombies. There's various ways just to reanimate this, and that's in Standard, by the way, baby. We got stuff like, I've already mentioned these cards, and I will continue to mention them, but Agadeem's Awakening, Call of the Death Dweller, and there's actually a bunch more good reanimation spells in Standard right now that I've finished plenty of games by just hitting with, Gangrenous Zombies a few times in the same game. It does 6 damage and all. Yeah, you have to sacrifice it, but hey, maybe you'll get pings off of Bastion when you sacrifice it. You'll get pings off of Iara when you play it in the first place. There's so many cool things about Gangrenous Zombies. I am 100% sure this would see absolutely 0 Standard play, but it's one of the cards that I'm weirdly nostalgic for from Ice Age that literally no one is. No one else in the world likes Gangrenous Zombies. I hope you've had enough time to read it by now. But anyway, number 6 is Skred. Now, this one I think is probably the most likely to get reprinted card on the entire list, but this would actually, you could argue, give mono red decks a really good removal piece that can take out Love-Struck Beasts and stuff sometimes, or other big, 4 and 5 toughness creatures that it currently doesn't have a whole lot of good cards to use against. You want to play Soul Seer in your mono red aggro deck? I didn't think so. So this would actually be a nice, cheap piece that scales to the late game. It can take out all kinds of stuff you normally wouldn't have access to. And I know that some people are going to be like, whoa, aren't there a bunch of other removal spells from Ice Age block that you really want? Don't you want Swords to Plowshares back? No, I don't. I actually don't want any more really cheap, efficient removal in Standard. I think I've had quite enough of that. I would like to keep my creatures in play, thank you very much. There's just a lot of really efficient removal in Standard right now. Although if you wanted to reprint Lightning Bolt, I think I would actually be down for that. I made a whole video about why it's safe. But anyway, we already have Shock. What's Lightning Bolt going to hurt? And yes, I mean that unironically. But I don't think Lightning Bolt would be too much right now. But I really don't love super cheap removal, and I don't want too much more of it right now. So Scred is about as far as I would go. But like I said, I think that it's somewhat. None of the cards on this list are likely to get reprinted, except for possibly Scred. Number 5 might actually be the weirdest card on the list. It might beat Gangrenous Zombies, but I think this card is way better than Gangrenous Zombies, especially considering, again, we got Ancient Green Warden in the format, so why not reprint Viscerid Drone, baby? I'm amazed that this card is only 15 cents on TCG Player right now. I had so much fun with this card back in the day, y'all. Like Lodestone Bauble, the thing that lets you put lands back on top of your library. So you're just sacrificing lands to it, you're getting the lands back. You're sacrificing creatures to it, but you don't care, especially nowadays when we have so many more creatures with dies triggers and, other things that create dies triggers like Bastion of Remembrance. We have so many more efficient ways of reanimating the creatures that we do sacrifice to this, so it's such a cool little creature. This is another one you may not have ever read, even if you did play Alliances back in the day. But yeah, this is a blue creature. This is a blue creature that taps to destroy a creature. That's unbelievable, right? I really doubt they'll ever reprint this ever again because it's such a massive color pie break. But look at it. You tap it to destroy creatures. That's nuts, right? And there's so many, just imagine sacking like a Serrated Scorpion or an Archfiend's Vessel to this, and then getting back to Vessel later or something with a Call of the Death Dweller. There's just so many ways that sacking a creature is an upside, and even though sacking a land is a massive downside, again, we've got things like Ancient Green Warden in the format, so I am down for some kind of janky Sultai Viscerid deck. I will make it work if you just give us the card, Wizards. Give us the card. By the way, this is a good commander card. So if you're not playing this in your commander decks, maybe you should look at it. It's not bad. Especially your mono blue commander decks. Did you know, mono blue commander players, that you have access to a blue creature that taps to destroy creatures? Did you know that? Now you do. So if you take nothing else from this video, maybe try out Viscerid Drone and Commander. But anyway, moving on to the next here. What even is it? Now we're getting into some serious cards, because number 4 is Pillage, y'all. I've been asking them to reprint Stone Rain forever. I'm pretty sure it almost seems like every one of these videos I point out Stone Rain and I'm like, do it, cowards! But they won't. They won't. So they probably won't reprint Pillage either, but if you were going to, I imagine the Viking set would be a pretty good time to do it, and it would be nice to have a card like Pillage right now. It's double red, and there's not a whole lot of decks that really want to get double red on turn 3 right now, aside from mono red, which isn't going to play Pillage in the main deck anyway. So, if you're worried about Gruul, well, they're going to play Pillage in the main deck. If you're worried about gosh, I don't even know beyond that. If you're worried about Teamer or Ramp, I doubt they're going to play Pillage in the main deck either. But, as a sideboard card, this can take out all kinds of specialty lands as well as Embercleaves and Great Hinges and other artifacts like Glass Casket and whatnot. So you could definitely make the case for it as a sideboard card. Or if you're going to build like Heavy Red Grixis or something like that. Or even just Big Red, perhaps. You could probably work in 4 copies of Pillage or maybe 3 copies of Pillage, and I really don't think it would break that much in Standard right now. But number 3, everybody, we're in the top 3 already. Let me breeze through this one. Thawing Glaciers, which not everyone will agree with, but, for landfall decks, for instance, Felidar Retreat decks, especially your more slow roll landfall decks, a card like Thawing Glaciers would be just fantastic, allowing you to get a landfall trigger literally every single turn of the game is real consistency that some of those decks lack. I think even Gruul might play like 1 copy of Glaciers. Sometimes you'll see Gruul play 1 copy of Evolving Wilds along with 4 copies of Fable Passes. Just drop the Evolving Wilds and play Thawing Glaciers instead, even if your deck is relatively fast, because a free landfall trigger every turn, or a near free landfall trigger, is something that deck is looking for when it's got a field full of Kazandu Mammoths and whatnot, so Brushfire Elementals. So I just really like the idea of Thawing Glaciers back, both for the slow decks and for the relatively fast decks that might be able to fit 1 copy of this, because it's kind of a late game plan in a way. Also, Ruin Crab. I waited until just now to say Ruin Crab because I knew it would be a controversial thing to say, but Thawing Glaciers plus Ruin Crab is very stupid. I think we can all agree. But we've also got a bunch of cards in the format right now, like Dryad of Elysian Grove and Azusa Lost But Seeking, that allow us to play multiple lands in a turn, so having to return Thawing Glaciers to our hand makes it not so slow. Makes it not anywhere near as slow as the Iceberg it's supposed to move like. And that might be dangerous, but it might also be really fun. So I'd like to try out Thawing Glaciers in a format like this with so many cards that kind of go well with it. Number 2 is honestly maybe my number 1. But number one, I wanted to make a sensational. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for number one. You will not, very likely, will not agree with number one. But number two is a card that I'd really like to see a reprint of. And that's Ritual of the Machine. I just tweeted about this card last night, too, because I was really excited to see it again. I, for some reason, just overcome with nostalgia when I saw the image of this card. And I'm not sure why, because when Alliances came out, a lot of publications had this picked as the number 2 or number 1 card in the set, even. In a set with Thawing Glaciers and Kaldheim Outpost and Force of Will, a lot of people had this picked as one of the best cards in the set because it's effectively a control magic in black. Then all you have to do is sacrifice a creature. That's it. The problem was twofold here. First of all, you didn't really want to sacrifice creatures because creatures were a little bit more precious back in the day. And sacrificing a creature often sucked because we didn't have things like dies, triggers on as many creatures. We didn't have as many incentives for sacrificing creatures. So there was that. That was a bit of a problem. The other issue is that creatures were simultaneously a bit crap. So you're with your 4 mana, you're not really stealing anything too special a lot of the time. And if you do steal something, it just gets shot down by a removal spell, right? So this card just really wasn't as important as a lot of people wanted it to be. But now we're in a completely different world. We're in a world where I've already mentioned a billion times in this video that sacrificing a creature has potential upside a lot of the time. With Serrated Scorpion, I'm not going to show these cards because I already have in this video. Serrated Scorpion, Bastion of Remembrance and whatnot. Sacking creatures, not a problem. Archfiend's Vessel, you want to sack that anyway. Scorpion, you want to sack that anyway. Skyclave Shade, I'll show that. There it is. I haven't showed that yet. Probably should have talked about this already. But you can sacrifice this and just play a land and bring it right back. It's like nothing, no harm, no foul, bro. So there's just so many ways to reanimate creatures and creatures that reanimate themselves even in Standard that sacking a dude is not a problem at all. And we have seen from Agent of Treachery to even the Akroan War, which shows up as a 1 or 2 of in some of these Gruul lists and is almost always in the sideboard, that stealing a creature, even for a turn or 2 in the case of Akroan War, is back-breaking in so many situations. And sacrificing a creature really isn't that big of a deal. So this would be an awesome card to have access to nowadays. I would love them to reprint Ritual. But let's get to number 1. What could it possibly be? I've already said I might get in trouble for this one. So maybe you're racking your brain thinking like, what is the worst, like what is the best card really? What is the most broken card that Dev could put as number 1 on this list? And maybe if I give you another 5 seconds to think about it, what's the most broken card from Ice Age block? What could it possibly be? That's right. Number 1, if you haven't come up with it yet, is Necropotence. And yes, to answer your question, I've completely lost my mind. I think this probably isn't as safe as I want it to be, but you could make a case that Necropotence is way safer than it used to be in a world that doesn't have access to Dark Ritual, doesn't have access to all the incredible spells that Black used to have access to. And yeah, we got Heartless Axe and stuff, but I'm just not really seeing a deck that really puts together Necropotence the way that it used to. Back in the day, you had, Sly to worry about, mono red aggro. You had White Weenie to worry about, but decks still didn't kill you anywhere near as quickly as they kill you nowadays, right? Like, play your Necro on turn 3, and you can't Dark Ritual into it on turn 1 anymore, so there's that to worry about. Play your Necro on turn 3, it's literally a do-nothing enchantment. Maybe you set aside 3 or 4 cards and find the perfect hand to draw on the next turn and all that. But then, your opponent just goes and sticks like a Embercleave onto a Lovestruck Beast, and there's your game, cowboy, you're done. So, things are just a little different nowadays, and I'm not sure that you can go spending 3 mana on an enchantment that you're going to pay life to get cards out of on turn 3, and it's anywhere near as good as it used to be. Yes, control decks probably want Necropotence. Don't get me wrong. If you can establish control of the game, sweep the board, and then land Necropotence, you've probably found yourself in a decent position, my guy. But a lot of the time, I don't think Necropotence is going to be anywhere near as good as it was in 1996 for fairly obvious reasons. I can assume I'm playing Rogues, a deck that wants to draw cards and has black in it. Well, like, every day I'm going to play Into the Story before I'd ever play Necropotence because it's instant speed. Right, I don't have to spend mana on my turn doing it. It gives me 4 cards and it doesn't pay. I don't have to pay any life for that at all. Like, I don't know. I think that there's in some ways better options for certain decks than Necropotence. But, you know, if you wanted to bring Mono Black back and make it a real deck again, then maybe Necropotence is the only way to do it. I don't think Phyrexian Arena is even going to be enough at this point. So, you know, just saying, maybe it's a crazy thing to do. Maybe it's not the right thing to do, but I think it's at least a fun thought experiment. If you just continue to think to yourself forever that we'll never have a healthy enough format, or we'll never have a format that can ever handle a card like Necropotence ever again, then you certainly never will, right? I mean, at least allow yourself to think about it. Even if your ultimate conclusion is that Necropotence is way too powerful for modern day standard Magic, at least allow yourself to think it through. Well, I'm pretty sure the last time I did one of these lists, my number one card was Sylvan Library. So, I mean, my number one always has to be something like really dumb that I know for a fact they'll never reprint in a standard. I just kind of want to do the thought experiment. That's all. And would Necropotence be entirely busted in standard? Probably, but only probably, not definitely. And I think that's, again, at least interesting to think about. But anyway, that's my list for the reprints that I want. If I didn't put cards like Necropotence on the list, then I wouldn't, at this point, have anything left to put on the list. I've done this video so many times. Like, what else do I put on there except for stuff they're never going to reprint, right? But anyway, I think that's it for me. But if there's anything that you want to see reprinted in Kaldheim, make sure to let me know down there in the comments section. I'll get at you. I read your comments, I really do. And I appreciate all the support lately, by the way. We're trying to get to 120,000 subscribers. Been trying for a while, so if you're not subbed yet, I know it's like 70% of the people that watch me aren't subbed. So even if you don't sub to YouTube channels, God knows I don't do it enough. Do it this one time. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for the notifications. I'm really bad at self-promotion. I can't even talk during it. Also, like the video if you enjoyed the video. And check me out on Patreon if you really want to support the channel. It's just $1 a month to vote on what content we do around here, and sometimes on the Twitch channel as well. And by the way, you want to watch me play Magic? We have a lot of fun. We have so much fun on the Twitch stream. So if you want to watch me play some of that Magic and get in with the Strictly Squad and, you know, get in with all the famous chatters, because we got a lot of them at this point. Seriously, it's like... Rustage, the MTG, or the YouTube rapper that does a lot of Naruto stuff, he raided me the other day with a party of like 400 people. Like, we get celebrities coming by. Pleasant Kenobi followed the other day. We had Covert Go Blue followed the other day. So, like, come by. You never know who you're going to see on the Twitch streams. Just twitch.tv/SBMTGDev. But I'm pretty sure that's all I got for this one. Just let me know how you felt about it and any cards you want to see reprinted yourself. But until next time, I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.